So last time we met, which was before Shavuos, we were talking about Torah, and we came up with a lot of really amazing things. People were sharing what's their vision of Torah, what is Torah, and we spoke how it's the manufacturer's guide, it's the how-to manual for the best life possible. God, Hashem, made us, and this is his instruction manual. This is telling us how we live our best life, how we live our healthiest life. We spoke about Torah, not just, as we were saying, on the physical plane, being our stability, being our security. We know it's God's world. We have his Torah. We spoke on a more spiritual level of how Torah is the will and wisdom of God. It's his diary, sharing with us his thoughts, his desires, himself. When he gave us the Torah, he gave us himself. That's what I was thinking a lot on Shavuos. Because each year on Shavuos, we once again get the Torah, which means once again, God invests an even deeper self in that Torah. Torah being God's wisdom, learning Torah for the sake of giving God that hug, that embrace, wanting to be one with God. And this is how, just giving him this hug of, I love you, I want to be with you, and how am I with you? How do I give you a hug when I learn? And Torah being the blueprint, right? The Midrash says that just as an architect builds a palace and has a blueprint to know where to put everything, where's the room, where's the doors, where's the ceiling, where's the lighting, so too God looked in the Torah and created the world. It's the divine blueprint. It's the vision that illuminates the foundations of existence, its purpose, its significance. When we study and live Torah, we understand and we experience the soul of reality. And that is my intro to the idea of studying Tehilim, because Tehilim is Torah. Now, Tehilim is very, very, very unique in Torah. It's a very special book of Torah. We know the written Torah has 24 books. We have the 5 books of Chumash, and then we have the books of the prophets, and then we have the books of the writings, right? We have Torah, then we have what we call Nevi'im, and then we have Ksuvim. Within Ksuvim, we have 5 books of Torah, 8 books of the prophets, Nevi'im, and 11 books of the writings, Ksuvim. And Tehilim is a sefer. It is one of the books of Ksuvim. So I want to emphasize that point because sometimes we don't even remember what Tehilim is. Because when we look at Tehilim, for many of us, Tehilim means my go-to book of prayer. When I have a trouble, when someone I know has a trouble, when I want to forestall a trouble, I'm going to open up and pour out my heart in Tehilim. So for many of us, we think of Tehilim like our personal prayer book. But it's actually one of the 24 books of Torah. So Tehilim is very unique because it's really a synergy of the power of Torah and the power of prayer. It's the only book like that. There are 23 other books of Torah. None of them are used by the Jewish people as a book of prayer. We have Mishlei, we have Koheles, we have Shir HaShirim, we have poetic books. None of them are prayer books. And even in the Siddur, in the liturgy of the prayer book itself, a tremendous percentage of our daily prayers are Tehilim, are Psalms. And the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, said, and I have quoted this many, many times to you because it's something that's just so powerful inside of me. If we only knew the power of Tehilim, the power of Psalms, to draw down God's kindness and compassion, we would say Psalms all day long. And sometimes I think about that. Me, I exaggerate sometimes, to be honest, But this is a tzaddik. This is a rebbe. This is a leader of world Jewry. He's not exaggerating. This is a literal truth. The enormous power of Tehilim. And maybe, he doesn't explain why, saying maybe it's because of this unique synergy that Tehilim is used by the Jewish people as a book of prayer. And at the same time, it's a book of Torah. It's a very unique fusion of those powers. It's almost amazing that a work of Torah could be a work of prayer because they go in 2 opposite directions. Meaning, Torah brings God down into this world. Prayer, we're sending up our requests to him. And Tehilim, Psalms, fuses both. So we have the power of drawing God down. We have the power of sending ourselves up. And it all happens as we say these words of Tehilim. So Lisa asked, should we open up to a specific chapter? We're first introducing the concept. Then we're going to start with chapter 123. So before we look at the blueprint inside. Again, this was Yael's suggestion. How do you relate to Tehillim? How does it compare to prayer for you? Do you find yourself more in sync when you say Tehillim, more in sync when you're praying from the Siddur? Is it the same? Is it a very different experience? What do you find?
It's not all the same as a Siddur. The Siddur is, it's like you have to. It's not, and there's like, and it's standard. Whereas Tehillim is, you don't have to, but you can. And it's something extra, because if you daven already every morning, I don't know, the Tehillim is extra, it's comforting. It's something, it's something you can fall on that is doing something and is helping, as opposed to doing nothing when you need help. And I think you can also cater which Tehillim to say for what good thing or bad thing. So there's some for refuah and some for this and some for that. And you say your kids' numbers. And once a lady was telling me that there was a couple having like marital issues. So every day, so she was telling that lady to say the Tehillim for however many years they've been married. So say the next one. I think, I don't know, it's comforting. I find it to be very comforting.
That's beautiful. It's comforting, and
Yeah.
you're saying it's very individualized.
And
You're
it's just something you can do more than
and
the
it's
standard.
it's like a korban
Yeah,
nedava, a free will offering. It's not a chatas. It's
yeah,
not obligatory.
yeah.
It's a nedava.
Right.
It's your turning to God, your gift to God, and your request from Him. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful relationship.
And
Just
you can say as little as much as you want also.
right, right,
So,
right.
I actually like the sitter better.
Yeah, Mary.
oh, really?
No, it's
Not
very
me.
interesting when I ask that question because I always find that everyone's answer is so unique. I always find that if I would ever discuss with a group of people, and I'm saying I remember I've actually taught to Helen before, but not to this class, and it's everybody has a very unique relationship to prayer, to the Siddur, and to the Tehillim. So I'm hearing what y'all saying, and it's beautiful. Miriam, you connect more when you daven with a Siddur, with a
Yeah, I like the structure of it. I like that it is the same thing every day, and I do like that. I like thanking Hashem for just for everything, even Shmoneh Esrei. Like there's things that I can insert in there that I don't know speaks to me, and
I do
yeah,
that too in Shmonas, right? And
yeah,
Tehillim.
so
yeah.
you
No,
make it a little
for
personalized.
some
It is
reason
somewhat personalized.
Yeah.
I say Perik Shira. I don't know why I have a disconnect to Tehillim. I shouldn't. It's not like me, but I don't know why. I don't know what it is.
So you're saying it's not just that you like the Siddur more, you feel disconnected when you say Tehillim.
Yeah, I don't know why. Maybe I don't know. Yeah.
I've seen people that say they like, I've heard it before. People
Yeah.
know how powerful it is and say Tehillim because they know it's so powerful, but they tell me davening works more for them.
And Perik Shira works for me also. Yeah. It's worked for me, like for real, for real. Like I've seen it.
Do you say your children's Tehillim? Do you say chapters for them, for yourself,
No,
for your husband?
no.
It's a
I
wonderful.
probably should.
Yeah, so you probably
We'll
should.
talk later.
You probably should. It's whatever their age is plus one, which isn't really plus one. We say plus one, but that's like almost apologetics. It's really their age. Meaning in America, when we say you're 60, you're not 60. You completed 60 years. You're actually 61. You're in your 61st year of life. When you turn 61, you're no longer 61 because you completed 61 years of life and now you are in your 62nd year of life. So that's how we count ages. And that is how we do the chapters of Tehillim. And even if it doesn't resonate, you should do yours, your husband's, your children's.
So it's how old they are. That's the
Yes,
Tehillim I
like
should
if they're
say.
17, say chapter 18, because they're really in their
Oh,
18th
okay,
year of
fine.
life. And if
Okay.
they're 20, say chapter 21, because they're in their 21st year of life. It's good to do it for yourself, for your husband, and for each one of your children. And it might be once you start exercising that muscle and saying it on a daily basis, you might feel the connection because
That's what it is. It's exercising that muscle. It's exactly what it is. You're right.
It's also when you need it is when you'll go to it. Like I started saying to them when my father was very sick, and I felt I had no other recourse. Like I didn't know. I mean, there were other recourse, obviously, tzedakah and increasing your observance. And I was physically taking care of him in terms of like the doctor's appointments and the medicines and all that, and coordinating his care. But this was like something extra that I had that I could do, and that's when I started really like spending
feeling.
a lot of time on Tehillim.
Eliza, what are you going to add?
I was going to say, well, I will say, initially, I didn't naturally connect to Tehillim when I was growing up, and it was something that I learned, and it was something that I said in terms of the Tehillim of the day for the month, and I would say it, but it was almost more like a chore. And it was not until really dealing with a challenge that someone pointed out to me the history of David being tested with the illness and then death of the baby he had with Bathsheba, and how the entire time that this baby was alive after he was born, that David was groveling on the ground, couldn't stop davening, couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't do anything. The minute the baby was no longer alive and there was nothing to do, then it's like, okay, he got up, there's nothing left to do. But then what did he say? Hashem sivatai tiftach ufig yagid tilasecha. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's where these words come from. That's what we say before Shemona Esrei. And I had more naturally connected to the structure also of Shemona Esrei, knowing, yes, within Shema Kolenu or within Rafa'enu, that's where I insert things. But when I realized here was someone, David HaMelech, who at his grief was saying, Hashem, I don't have any words. You're in charge of all the words. You're in charge of me. You're in charge of Rabbos Machshavos, you're in charge of my thinking. Open up my mouth that my lips should declare your glory, even in the midst of bearing this child. And then I thought, wow, so what's the rest of Tehillim? And then it was like the more, and to this day, I can't get enough of it. I can't get enough of saying it, but I also can't get enough of learning Tehillim, because I feel the more that I learn what I'm saying, the more I emotionally connect to it.
That's very unusual. That's very special and very unusual, because I think most people that say Tehillim, including in Yiddish, you have the expression Tehillim Zuggers, which means people that say a lot of Tehillim. And there's people like Yael was saying about herself that she connected to it when her father was very ill. There's many people that really connect deeply to saying Tehillim. And my assumption is a good 99% of them don't know what they're saying. Maybe give it 95%. Because Tehillim is very complex structure of language. You could have a very good Hebrew and not understand a lot of Tehillim unless you really take the time to think of what it means. So unlike the Siddur, which is written, straightforward enough that if you have a good Hebrew, you can understand about 80% of it.
And it's not, I'm sorry I'm interrupting, it's not just the Hebrew that it's a more poetic means of speaking, or the pentameter, the rhythm, it's not straightforward at all, but it's also all the history and knowing who said it and what the context was, and to then appreciate what they were saying. So it's like so many different levels.
Right. And I'm saying, I think it's very unusual. It's very beautiful. It's very unusual for someone to say, because I want Tehillim to be meaningful, I actually really want to know what I'm saying. And I was hoping through doing this, definitely probably not to the depth of what you've already explored, because this is not a textual class, but giving over some of the ideas that was sort of my hope, inspired by El, who wanted us to try, that as we explain some concepts, we're not doing a nitty-gritty approach here, but more just exactly have that, to have some concepts in our head. So when we say these chapters, they could be more meaningful for us, even for people who find Tehillim meaningful, and maybe for people who it doesn't resonate with. Maybe when you have some sense of what you're saying, it might help more. So I just selected a few. We're going to see how it goes. I want to start with 123, which is the chapter of the Rebbe this year, and which happens to be a chapter that resonates so deeply in me. And when I say those words, and because it's the Rebbe's chapter, I say it a lot, the words are so powerful. And I do feel a lot of times, even though I do appreciate what Eliza is saying, and definitely the more you know and the more you understand, but when you do understand the basics of what you're saying, like the basic meaning of the word, for me often that's enough. The words are so powerful. The ideas, the surface ideas are so wow, that I, for myself, find that I don't need to go into all the commentary analysis to be very, very moved by the basics of what David HaMelech is sharing with us. But we'll see how it goes. So we're going to start with chapter 123. Shir HaMailos, Elecha Nasasi Es Einai Hayoshvi Bashamayim. So this is one of the Shir HaMailos, one of the songs of ascent, one of the songs of the Leviim, of the Levites, of the 15 steps ascending to the temple. Hine Chaynei Avadim Al Yad Onehem, Kinei Shivcha Yad Gevirta, like the eyes of the servants of the slaves to the hand of their masters, like the eyes of the maidservant to the hand of her mistress, So are our eyes to God, our God, until he will be gracious to us. Chanenu Adonai, chanenu ki rav savanu vuz. Be gracious to us, God. Be gracious to us, because we have been saturated with scorn. Rabba savala nafshenu halag hasha'ananim habuz lig'eyonim. Much have our souls been saturated with the mockery of the complacent ones, with the scorn of the arrogant ones. This is a very short psalm. It's 4 verses, and it's very strong. It's a very, very, very strong message of pleading to God for our suffering. Now, what the commentators discuss is, what suffering are we talking about? Who's pleading, and what's the suffering that we're referring to? So Rashi, who is a classical commentator on all of Tanakh and on all of Talmud, right? He's the ultimate teacher of the Jewish people. So Rashi says this is referring to how the nations destroyed Yerushalayim, how the nations destroyed Jerusalem. And we're saying, God, we have suffered so much in that destruction. Be gracious, heal our pain, heal our suffering for the destruction of Yerushalayim. That's basically the point Rashi looks at in this chapter. The Ibn Ezra looks at it differently. The Ibn Ezra, who personally actually suffered quite a lot. Of course, in those days, there was a lot of suffering going on, but somehow Ibn Ezra is one of those figures of suffering. But the Ibn Ezra says it refers to a person's individual suffering. And the person is turning to heaven, to Shemayim, to God, because he knows everything comes from heaven. Meaning, whatever the individual is going through, he's not thinking, well, it's because of this that I'm in pain, or it's because of that, because of my lack of mazel, because of my this, because I don't have the connections, because of my ill health, because of my gene set. He knows whatever's happening to me is coming from God. It's a very, very powerful lesson that, of course, we know, and of course, we've touched on many times in this class, that whatever we're going through and whoever we can blame for what we're going through, and of course sometimes there do seem to be factors we can blame, whoever's responsible, it's all from heaven. It's all from God. It's all God's good. There's the revealed good, which is the type we're looking for, and then there's the concealed good that we process as difficult, that we process as suffering. And then Ibn Ezra is saying that this chapter is the person recognizing that whatever he's going through, it's from God, so there's no point in turning anywhere else. Look at the words. Like the slave to his master. There's no one else that could do anything for him, good or bad. God, we're yours. It's your world. You're our ultimate creator, master, father. You're the Almighty. Everything we're going through is you. So please be gracious, because we know whatever's happening, it's coming from you. And therefore, we're turning to you. Now, obviously, this theme, how the Ibn Ezra explains this chapter, is something that we have discussed many times. It's very, of course, powerful and always very relevant. How do you see your progression in this concept? By now, do you find yourself automatically turning to God, knowing it's all Him, knowing He's the only source? Or do you still have to work to recognize that? How do you see this journey yourself? No means
No.
you
No,
know.
meaning no, it's all from Hashem. If something's good, you thank him. If something's bad, you start davening.
So it's automatic. No
Oh yes,
no
of
delay
course it's
time.
automatic.
Nothing.
I mean, you can be upset at the person who wronged you, but at some point you realize everything that happens is from Hashem, and it's all for the good. But sometimes you just don't understand why, and sometimes you never will.
For sure. Of course.
Yeah, like I don't understand why. What's the good on October 7th? But Hashem has a plan. I don't know what it is.
And we would never dare to say, because if we as people would be these mighty philosophers and theologians and say, well, I see the good in October 7th. First of all, that's the most cruel thing a person could do. That's absolute cruelty.
Right.
That's harsh and callous and cold and everything God does not want you to be. And also, it's like giving God a pass, giving God an out, saying, it's okay because, it doesn't make a difference what the because is. The answer is no, God, it's not okay. It's all you. It's all you. And it's not okay. It's not okay. And we don't understand it. And we will never understand it. And the only thing you can do is bring them all back. The only thing you do is bring Mashiach. That's the only comfort we can accept, because no, there's nothing we can say that will ever make sense of that. And I think it's very important that I'm sure we naturally have that attitude, but that we cultivate it and we understand it. And if somebody would ever start giving apologetics, I say, no, that's wrong. We don't need to be, to be God's defense advocate here. We need to say, God, this is horrible. This is painful. This is you. We know this is all good. We know, and it's painful and horrible, and we need Mashiach now. That's it. That's all we're going to tell him about things like that. When we look and see the good in what's bad, it's only for our own suffering. Never, forget October 7th. Your neighbor had a fire in their house. No, you don't philosophize why and explain how. No. For your own suffering and challenges, you are supposed to do that, because it's all good and it's all God, and you're supposed to search your deeds, and you're supposed to understand, and you're supposed to, and that is very, 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 very important for our own challenges, but never for anyone else's, only for our own. For anyone else's, we say, God, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? It's all you. We put all the blame right on you, and we have to turn this around. But Yael says right away, she always knows it's God. Good, wonderful, bad, it's you, God, and I have to pull out that Tehilim, give that charity, use all my tools, because it's all you and it has to change. Do you find it as automatic, or do you have to process and realize and think and come to terms with that?
I would say I automatically self-talk, that I have the conversation is where I want to be. But my automatic, as something takes place, is to say, I know it's from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I know I'm davening for revealed good. This doesn't feel very good revealed right now, but I still know it's all HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But okay, and that, so it's my automatic self-talk. The self-talk that's conscious is where I want to be. But if that's where I am, then I guess it's not internalized at the level I'd like it to be internalized, where I don't need the conversation.
It's actually a very, very wise tool. It's interesting that you on your own realize that. The Alter Rebbe in Tanya in chapter 44 discusses that tool, which is basically what Elisa is saying is put in your mind and in your mouth, as she's saying, where you'd want to be. The relationship with Hashem you want to have, the love, the whatever it is, because as we talk about something and think about something and actually act as per, that helps us pull out from ourselves what's really buried inside and very latent. Sefer HaChinuch said, Acharei ha'maisim nimshachim halavavos. After the actions are drawn the hearts, which means, contrary to some popular psychology, we believe and know that what we do, what we say, and what we consciously think molds our inner reality. And especially when we're talking about concepts like this, like belief in God, trust in God, love of God, fear of God, because all that's inside of us. That's buried in our soul. That was gifted to us. Within a soul is all of those powers. So when we're self-talking, saying, consciously thinking, consciously doing things, it's evoking the truth that's already there inside of us. So it's a very, very powerful tool. It's a great tool. I'm awed that you just figured it out on your own. It's wonderful. It's very healthy. And I hear what you're saying. It's a process. It's a journey. But that self-talk is very helpful in pulling it out. We spoke about Rashi's perspective and Ibn Ezra's. Lubavitcher Rebbe, when he looks at this chapter of Tehillim, he says the entire chapter is pleading for redemption. Now it's interesting because Lubavitcher Rebbe has also said that if a person's focused on something, wherever they look, that's what they see. And the Rebbe is definitely focused on redemption. Just as we might see in ourselves. Yael said it's true, because we might also see that in ourselves. When you have something in your head, wherever you look, you just see it. The Rebbe's looking, he sees redemption. Now, but this isn't only the Rebbe's perspective. If you're looking inside a Tehillim, on top of each chapter, there's in very small print, a little one-liner, or two or three sometimes, which tells us the crux of that Tehillim. It's like a brief summary of the chapter. I forget the name of the person who wrote them. He was a very holy Jew. And he says that what is this chapter about? Hamashayre Mekoine Alzman Aruch V'Rav She'avru Kavar Begolos. He says this is about the pain. The lamentation here is the lamentation for this long, long, painful exile. That is the crux of this chapter. It's a plea for redemption. It's the pain of exile. And when we say this, we're looking and we're saying, God, we lift up our eyes to the heavens. What are we saying? We're saying, when will this exile be over? We have been here too long. We have suffered too much. And of course, as Yael just mentioned, October 7th, we don't have to convince ourselves that the suffering, the persecution continues literally today. As my son was showing me on the Instagram, the TikTok, literally today. We all know it, unfortunately, very, very, very well. So a lot of different people in this world could look at a lot of different things to say, yes, that's a sign we're still in exile. Anyone have something here that makes them feel strongly the exile? What will be their sign of we're in exile?
All the anti-Semitism that's going on right now.
Yeah.
All the Arabs being given like red carpet treatment to walk on our streets all over Europe here, and be shouting death to America, death to Jews, and no one moves a finger.
Yeah, that was a huge wake-up call for the Jewish world this year. Because I think for a lot of Jews, if you had spoken to someone in September, not to everyone, obviously, and some people were very tuned into this way before October 7th, but many, many Jews were very complacent and felt very integrated into the population. And yeah, October 7th. And since it wasn't just October 7th, till today, is definitely making Jews recognize we're Jews. Someone was showing me, it's an old clip. I'm just saying, she just happened to show it to me today to ask me a question about it, of some comedian in Israel, totally not religious. And he put out, maybe all of you saw it, maybe I saw it then also, I'm saying it was a while ago. This was before the Shabbos before Purim, for Shabbos Zachar, when we speak about the destruction of Amalek, and he was saying he was going to keep Shabbos the first time in his life. They destroyed us on Shabbos. We're going to keep Shabbos. We're going to stand up to the world and say, we're not breaking down. We're proud. We're Jewish. I don't know who he is, but from what he was saying, it sounds like he probably never thought he would ever keep a Shabbos in his life. And he said, no, now I'm keeping this Shabbos. The question was, what makes you, if anything, makes you feel, yeah, we're still in exile? And Yael said, the anti-Semitism, the flaunting of it, the permission for it. Yeah, it's like acceptable. It's totally acceptable. It's totally acceptable. This whole, whatever. I can't even go into all the things I've heard in Chicago, happening, and totally acceptable. And maybe it is part of us remembering we're in exile and remembering we're different. And if we ever forget that we're different, the world will always, always let us know. Sometimes the world lets us know because it thinks we're so special, and sometimes other things, but the world let us know. But I will definitely post it, and definitely that is the most beautiful response to anti-Semitism, is to say, really? You want to destroy us because we're Jews? Wow, we want to be real Jews. If it bothers you so much that we're Jews, I better find out what it means to be a Jew. And thank God there have been many Jews since October 7th that have had that response and that have said, this is why they hate me. I should find out what it's all about. Any other thoughts, though, besides that most obvious one now in our lives now, of anything? If there's anything that feels to you the pain of exile? Yeah, Elisa?
So for me, yes, I'm pained by the anti-Semitism, and it's scary feeling like it's 1934 all over again. But for me, so I love counting Sphira. I love counting up to Matan Torah because, okay, yes, I love Torah, but honestly, what I love that I'm always so excited counting up to is knowing that we received Torah because we were in a place of being one. There was achdus, there was unity, and that we weren't seeing people as, oh, you're this type, oh, you're that type. And instead there was unity. And what I find in terms of being in exile is the infighting, that you look at the news and all you have to do is look at even the news coming out of Eretz Israel and the Israeli government and the backstabbing that I feel like this is embarrassing. The other nations of the world don't need to know what the infighting is between us as siblings, and like all the demonstrations, it leaves us open to the anti-Semitism, but I feel like we're not, or we're not behaving as siblings.
I hear you, and actually, I think that's a very true, real festering wound of exile is that lack of unity. At a certain point, the sages first could not resolve a disagreement. Talking here in the little of sages, it wasn't backstabbing, infighting, but a Torah, a halacha that they could not come to a reconciliation on. It was considered a tremendous day of mourning. We're not all united. Yes, of course we disagree, and I can argue my position, and you can argue your position, but in the end of the day, we come to a common agreement, even if I have to give in, even if you have to give in. But at the end of the day, we always compromise, or we give in to the majority rule, to be more accurate. And that day that first occurred, now to us, that's absolute normalcy. Sephardim do it like this, and Ashkenazim do it like this, and German Jews do it like this, and then there's Hasidish, and then there's Chabad, and then there's all the different Edot within the Mizrach, within the Sfarad. Of course, that's normal. No, actually it's not. Actually, that's exile. Actually, that's abnormal. So yes, definitely when we take it the next level, not only in the differing halacha, laws, and the customs, but we come to backstabbing and infighting and disagreement, and the disagreement that leads to far worse, 100%, that's exile. That is absolutely exile. That's an abnormal situation that we think is the given and the norm, and it's not. It's the abnormal state of exile. Absolutely, 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 absolutely is.